Hello, welcome to Prajim Technologies. I am Venkat. This is part 28 of ASP.NET video series. In this session, we'll learn about the ASP.NET bulleted list control. Before continuing with the session, I strongly recommend to watch parts 25, 26, and 27 of this video series. In ASP.NET, there are several list controls like drop-down list, checkbox list, radio button list, list box, and bulleted list. Just like every other list control, bulleted list is also a collection of list item objects. Items can be added to the bulleted list in the HTML source at design time or in the code behind file at runtime programmatically. Bulleted list, like any other list control, supports data binding. For example, a bulleted list can be bound to a database table or to an XML file. Now let's look at some of the useful properties of bulleted list that can be customized further to suit our application needs. Let's flip to Visual Studio, drag and drop a bulleted list control onto the web form. And we know that a bulleted list is a collection of list item objects, and those list item objects can be added in the HTML source at design time. I have some of them already typed, so let's copy and paste them there. Let's select all the HTML, format selection to format that properly. Okay, so if I flip this to the design mode, now look at this. By default, it's showing us an unordered list. Okay, the bulleted list by default shows an unordered list. So when we run this, it will actually render this bulleted list control as an unordered list. In HTML, we have the unordered list which we create using UL tag. Alright, now let's say instead of this unordered list, I want an ordered list where we can show numbers instead of the bullets. How do we do that? Go to the properties of the bulleted list, and there is a property called bullet style, and set that to numbered. And the moment we do that, look at that, we have these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. So instead of the bullets, now we have the numbers, and when we run the application now, instead of generating an unordered list, it will actually generate an ordered list, as you can see here. Okay, now does the ordered list start numbering at 1 every time? No, you can customize that as well. There is a property called a first bullet number, okay, which can be used to specify the value at which you want the ordering to start. So now let's say if I say that to 10, and look at what's going to happen, it's going to start at 10, which is again very simple and straightforward. Now if you look at the bullet style property, you have several styles there. You can display alphabets, so when I select lower alphabets, look at that, it starts from J because I have selected 10. If I put that to 1, it will start at 1. So there's a lot of customization that you can do. I can select upper alphabets, or I can select the Roman numbers, lower and upper, and I can also use symbols like disc, circle, or square, or custom image. You can customize this to suit your needs. So when I specify custom image as the bullet style, then you need to specify the bullet image URL. You're saying I'm going to use my custom image, so in that case you'll have to tell where is that custom image, what's the path of that one, using this bullet image URL property. Now I already have an image here. Let's copy that. Let's go to our Visual Studio, and within the Solution Explorer, let's add a new folder to our web application project. Let's call that images, and let's paste this image into that folder. Okay, so I have an image here. Now if we go to this web form, select our bullet list, and we set bullet style is custom image, and the bullet image URL is going to come from this images folder. So let's select that. Okay, and look at that, it's using that image there. So now when we run this, as you might expect, it uses those images that we have specified. So a lot of customization is possible as far as the display of this bulleted list is concerned. Bullet style. Now there is another very useful property called the display mode. Now by default the display mode is text. Now let's flip this back. Let's go to the properties of the bulleted list. Let's choose maybe numbered, or let's not choose any style, which defaults to the unordered list. Okay, so there is another property called display mode. And if you look at this, it takes three values: text, hyperlink, and link button. By default it's text, so the list items rendered as text, but then you can also specify the display mode as hyperlink, in which case all these list items are clickable. The user can actually click them and go to the respective pages or even external sites. Now let's say I want these hyperlinks. Now when you want your list items within the bulleted list to be hyperlinks, then the value will actually be the URL to which you want to navigate. It could be a page within your application, or it could be an external site. So let's copy these list items just to save some time. And in the source, instead of using these list items, I'm going to use these ones. Okay, so obviously when we run this now, the list items are going to be rendered as hyperlinks, and the user can actually click on them and the user will be navigated to the site. So when we run this, look at the hyperlinks there. Now as I move my mouse over these hyperlinks, look at that, the URLs on the browser at the bottom. Okay, so obviously when I click this now, it's going to navigate me to that URL. I clicked on Google, so it's taking me to the Google website. Okay, now if you notice, the Google website has opened in the same URL. Now let's say I want this target web page to be opening in its own window or a new tab. Is that possible? Absolutely. All you have to do is, this bulleted list has got another property called target, where you can specify whether you want to open it in the same window or in a different browser window. If you want to open that within a different browser window, then specify the target as underscore blank. So now if we run this and try to click on any of the link, then that website will be opened in its own URL. Let me click on YouTube. Look at that, it's opening in another tab within the same browser window. I have my original page here. Alright, so that's about display modes, text and hyperlink. Now another interesting value this display mode can take is the link button. Now if you have seen until now, we haven't discussed any event of a bulleted list control. Now if I double click this bulleted list control, let's see what's going to happen. I double click this, look at that. The bulleted list actually exposes a click event, which means the user can click on this list item. Now if we go to the properties of the bulleted list and change the display mode to link button, now these links are going to be displayed as link buttons upon which the user can click. And when the user clicks on them, it's going to post back to the server, and you can tap into that click event and you can identify which link button the user has actually clicked and retrieve the text, value, and index of that list item. And let's see how to do that. Okay, so now to retrieve the list item upon which the user has clicked, we will use the bulleted list event argument here. Now if you look at that E, okay, there is a property called index, which will give us the index of the item that the user has clicked on. So we have 4 items here. It's a 0 based index, so it's going to start at 0. Okay, so this index will give us the item upon which the user has clicked. And now how do I retrieve the text and the value of that list item? It's very simple. So this is a bulleted list. So bulleted list 1 dot items collection. So the items collection is going to return us the list of list items within that bulleted list. But we don't want all the list items. We want the list item upon which the user has clicked. So I'm going to use the index of that list item. And how do I get the index? Using e.index property. Okay, so that's going to give us the list item upon which the user has clicked. So list item li. So once we have the list item, all we have to do is retrieve the text and the value of that and print that onto the screen. So response.write, we want the text, so text is equal to li.text, and then to properly format this, use the HTML break. So let's copy paste all that, and we know the value is equal to li dot value, and if you want the index, we already have the index using this bulleted list event args object. So e dot index, that's an integer, so let's convert that to string and then get rid of this HTML. And let's change this text to index. Okay, so let's run this now. So obviously now when we click on the item, the web page will be posted back to the server, and we have the option to actually retrieve the text, the value, and the index. If I click on Gmail, Gmail is the text, value is that, and the index is 3 because that's a zero-based index, and Gmail is the last item within that list. On this slide, you can find resources for ASP.NET, C#, and SQL Server interview questions. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.